Challenge accepted.
So you've heard it, guys, or you read it. Mark just challenged me to paint a display model in under like 8 hours. So let's get it on.
Welcome, Wargamers.
So the first thing that I needed to do was to pick up a model from all those available. And the one I chose was this Devil Lady, because to be honest, it seemed like more in line to what I'm used to painting. I'm not really used to paint Gundams or stuff like that. I'm more used to painting Warhammer kind of stuff. So the first thing that I needed to do was to figure out how would I paint this model. And to be honest, this was challenging. There you can see me pretty much just preparing the model, priming it. Now, I usually don't really prime resin models because they're usually ready to be painted. They take paint very well just because the material it's ready, it's porous enough. It has some porosity to allow the paint to stick to it. So I don't really prime them usually. However, with this particular model, I just wanted to get to know it, and I did it with a brush. I just wanted base color to work out of, and that's it. So after finishing the priming, I just started brushing on some purples, purple from Army Painter, and this was just really to see which color scheme I liked. I really was trying to go after some mecha kind of anime vibe, so I really just picked up the colors from the Evas from Evangelion. So I started adding some reds as a base and some grays just to check if I liked the color scheme that it was taking on. And this is where I want to share how to proceed when you don't know how to paint a model. This is the process that I usually run through, which is basically just covering the model in very thin layers of paint just to see if I like it, because there's many times, and I'm sure it has happened to you, that you commit with a paint scheme or like certain tones, and at the end you don't really like it and you have to strip the model, or you have to go back because you already applied many layers of thick paint. And as you can see, I've really just added one thin layer of paint. So if I don't really like the scheme it's taking on, I can just go back and cover it up or like change it during the process. So there you can see that I've added more colors to the model, a little bit of green, some yellow, and a little bit of pink to the skin. I pretty much just kept experimenting with the colors and the model, and I just wanted to find a color scheme that I was excited about. I wanted to paint something that really spoke to me, and again, I took inspiration from like the Evas, and I really was liking how the model was turning out. So I just kept at it. Pretty much when I decided that a color was gonna be that, I started adding more layers about, and that's how I gained more confidence on the scheme that I was picking on. So I think that's a good process. If that works for you, that's great. It has worked for me in the past, and it worked with this model. So once I had committed to a color scheme for the base model, I started looking at the wings and how I would paint them. Obviously I wanted them to complement the base model, so again I started adding thin layers of paint just to check if I was liking what I was seeing, and if I didn't, I would be able to correct course. When I finished up the wings, I thought they looked like Spider-Man's wings, so I tried adding a little bit more of the complementary colors that I had added to the base body. And at this point I was just trusting the process. I wasn't 100% convinced of the model at this moment, but at this point I just had to trust the colors that I had picked and then just commit to the color scheme. I just had to trust the process. There's always a point when you're painting any model that you're not 100% convinced of the decisions you've made, and it takes a while before you can actually just push through it and commit to a paint scheme when you know you have made the right decisions, and you just gotta stick to it. I mean, the only person that has to like your model, it's you. But even then, when you're at this stage of the painting process, you are not 100% convinced, and it happens every time. There's a point where your model just looks off and you have to stick through it. This was this point for me, and I stick through it. So once I was done with the wings, I went back to the body and I layered the skin with a little bit of barbarian flesh to try to pull out the details of it. And I just finished adding details to the grays that I had added, to the yellows, to the reds, to the purples, and you can actually see the model taking shape right now. Like the incremental process that it's painting, it's starting to pull off what is actually behind the design, and you can see where the designer made the different choices that built this model till the end. So once again, I just kept adding to it and just trusted the process. So at this point, I was really happy with the color scheme that I had picked, and I decided I wanted to give a wash to the whole model, a purple wash, because I wanted to add it on as a filter, kind of like a photographic filter. I wanted the whole model to have a purple shade because it complemented the reds, the yellows, even the blues, the greens. So I pretty much just did that. And well, as you can see, I had also painted the base gray at this point. I just wanted to distinguish where the model ended and where the special base started, and I just kept on. So the wings pretty much received the same process. I added the purple shade to all of it. By this point, they had already received the greens, the yellows, the purples that I wanted, and they no longer looked so much as the wings of Spider-Man. I was happy with that, and I kept on. I just covered the whole thing in the purple shade, and I followed on to the next part of the process. Once I finished adding all the purple shade, I started adding some flesh wash to the skin of the model. And as you can see, I started working on the eyes because basically I needed to fix the eyesight, like the expression that I wanted the model to have before I moved forward. At this point is where I made like the only mistake I considered with this model, because I spent a lot of time trying to make a green pupil work, and due to the size of the eyes and the way I had painted the rest of the model, I never really liked how it looked. So I just had to go back and redo it, and I did it a bunch of times. I spent like 40 minutes on it and on just the eyes, and it never really worked for me. So in the end, I went back and just covered them in black until I got the expression I wanted. Once I was happy with the way the expression looked, I did painted the lips just with a little bit of paint on the tip and with a lot of care. And well, basically, once I was happy with that, I started highlighting the rest of the face to make sure that I had nailed on the expression that I wanted, or an acceptable one. I spent a little bit more time on it that I would have liked, but again, this is one of the focal points of the miniature, so I wanted to make sure that it was right, just right, and I just kept at it until I was happy with the result. A bunch of times during this process, I repainted the skin with some barbarian flesh, and I just added a little bit more wash every time to make sure that the contrast between the face, the lips, the contour of the eyes, the hair, everything was marked off correctly, that nothing blended into each other, that no element that shouldn't blended. And I just mixed a little bit of flesh wash with a little bit of water, just regular water, and I added it in until I got the contrast that I wanted. And then I just continued with the highlight process, just adding thin layers every time until I was happy. For example, I just mixed some skeleton bone with the barbarian flesh to highlight the skin, and I continued in a gradient, adding more and more and more skeleton bone until I was happy with the result. I added some dragon red to the armor. The purple, I pretty much just mixed the purple with a little elemental bolt. And I pretty much just continued with this process, adding layers and layers until I had a gradient that I liked with the little amount of time that I had available. I tried to highlight as much as I could from the miniature, but this was done a little bit in a rush, so obviously I wasn't able to highlight it or pull off the gradients that I wanted. But in the end, I'm really happy with the result. And basically, I just continued with this process. I glued on the wings, and by the end of it, I really liked how it turned out. However, I thought it needed a little bit more differentiation between the wings and like the rest of the body. So I did like a stippling effects on the wings to make sure that they were differentiated from the rest of the materials on the body and everything else. And I'm happy with the effect overall, but I'm not 100% sold on the way I executed it. And to be honest, it's a lot of hassle. You can just really do it with a dry brush and you would save yourself so many headaches. However, I really want to try it that way, and if done correctly, I'm sure it would look great. However, I didn't have enough time to pull it off. So the main regret that I have is just not having enough time to really bring all the detail that this model has. It really lends itself to devote a lot of hours just to bring out every little nook and cranny the armor has, like the detail the skin has, everything else, and I just couldn't really give it enough time because everything so rushed. So I really would like to spend a little bit more time refining it. However, I don't think I will do it in this one. I'll probably end up painting another one that I printed up. And if you also want to paint some ladies with Mecha-Bikini armor, it's your chance to go to the Papsikel stripes right now, because it's no joke that you only have less than 24 hours to get to it. So go ahead and support it before it's too late. And if you would like to ask more questions regarding the painting style or whatever you want to ask me, if you don't like anything, please make sure to leave a comment and subscribe just to see what is next in Agoreyus Wargames.